Most arguments are not lost because you're wrong. They're lost because you're playing chess while the other person is swinging a lead pipe. You think you're in a debate about facts, but you're actually in a battle of neurochemistry, politics, religion, X, cable news, Thanksgiving dinner. Look, these aren't exchanges of information. They are identity-protective cognition exercises. I mean, when you bring a spreadsheet to an amygdala fight, you have already lost, my guys. And today, we're going to perform an autopsy, a psychological autopsy on human conflict. I'm going to show you the seven archetypes of argumentation, and how the elite, the politicians, the cult leaders, the high-level influencers, and we're going to talk about how they use these things to hijack your prefrontal cortex. I'm also going to give you a section on garbage arguments, where I'm going to teach you how to spot the weak-minded rhetoric people use when they have no ground to stand on, and exactly how to dismantle them with masculine, stoic precision. We're moving past the facts don't care about your feelings mantra, right? Because while that may be true, brains don't care about facts when they feel threatened. Stay with me, because in 20 minutes, I'm going to explain why winning an argument publicly is the fastest way to lose the war of influence. Plant that thought. So what are the seven major types of argumentation? You've got logos, right? The data trap, if you will, right? And this is usually an appeal to logic, right? Causality. Think of Barack Obama, right? When he was defending the ACA with cost curves, right? Or, what's that right-wing guy, Ben something, right? Rapid firing statistics off. Anyway, most people believe they are logos driven. But Kunda's research on motivated reasoning in 1990 show we actually use logic as a lawyer for our emotions and not a judge. If you lead with logos against someone in an emotional state, you aren't being smart. You are being cluelessly academic. Number two, right? What do we got for number two? We've got something called pathos, and this is sort of the opposite side of the scale, right, from logos. This is the emotional hijack. It's an appeal to someone's gut, right? Someone's intuition, right? So, for instance, when Donald Trump, talks about American carnage, in that rhetoric, or AOC's visceral storytelling about the border, right? I mean, this isn't just feelings. It's an attempt to bypass the executive function and trigger the limbic system. And that's exactly what it does. In religious settings, I mean, pathos is the altar call, right? This is that moment, when there's that crescendo of music, right? That's designed basically to induce a state of hypersuggestibility, right? I mean, that's what it is, right? Gets you feeling all in the moment, so you're going to walk up there and pray. Then we have ethos. This is the authority flex, right? I'm the expert. Shut up, right? Anthony Fauci, right? During the pandemic, right? Smart guy, brilliant. But he wasn't just debating medicine. He was debating institutional trust, right? And that's why it makes it so difficult. He may have been an expert in his field, but he was dealing with people that didn't want to hear about anything from experts. Ethos is the most fragile of the three, right? If the audience views the institution as corrupt, the ethos argument actually becomes a negative signal. You know what I'm talking about. All those people on Reddit, right? The 4chan, whatever board they're on, screaming about distrusting the government, which, I mean, nowadays, they might have been right, at least partially. But let's not muddy the waters here, right? You've also got number 4, the moral foundations, right? The sacred value, if you will. And this is based on Jonathan Haidt's research, right? Arguments about, life versus autonomy or sanctity versus oppression, these types of things, right? What these do, these types of arguments, these morally sort of like grounded arguments, they activate what's known as the insula, right? And the insula is pretty much just like your disgust circuit, to be honest. And when you challenge a sacred value, the other person doesn't think you're wrong. They think you're evil. And this is a big problem, guys. Number 5, we've got the Gish Gallop, right? The information blizzard, if you will, drowning the opponent in 50 weak arguments. So they can't possibly debunk them all in the allotted time. Now, to an uneducated audience, right? The person talking the fastest and the most often looks like the winner, right? It's a dopamine display, not a debate. There's also steel manning. Now, this is a good one. This is actually the elite move, in my opinion, right? This one right here is probably, in my opinion, the best of the 6, right? And what you do is you build the strongest possible version of your opponent's argument that you can before you destroy it. You work hard to build up their argument as much as possible, knowing the whole time you're going to destroy it, right? It's the ultimate alpha intellectual move. I mean, it shows you aren't afraid of their best points. They don't mean jack to you. It lowers their defenses because they feel heard. It's beautiful, baby. It's a beautiful one. A little manipulative, but aren't most of these? Number seven, narrative framing. The Trojan horse, right? What you do is you wrap a point in a story. So, for example, right, Ronald Reagan, right? He coined this term, the welfare queen, right? It wasn't a statistic. I mean, this guy was pulling stuff straight out of his butt. It was a character that he wanted to create because stories activate the DMN, the default mode network, right? This makes the listener a co-pilot in the story. I mean, it's a brilliant move by Reagan, right? But it was based on complete fabrication. He wanted to create a story that fit his narrative, right? And so that's what he did. Now, what about the effectiveness of these arguments, right? Why is logic bottom tier? Well, in mass politics and social media, the ranking is probably like this, if you want to be honest. Moral framing, right? Who is the villain? Narrative. What is the story? Pathos. How do I feel? Logos. The boring stuff in the footnotes. Humans are post hoc rationalizers. We decide how we feel instantly. And then our brain spends the next, hour trying to find logos to justify how you're feeling. And according to Dan Cahan's Identity-Protective Cognition, if a fact threatens your tribe, your brain will literally treat the fact as a physical threat. You aren't debating data. You are debating tribal safety, and this causes problems. Now, what about what's going on in the brain? I mean, what's the actual neuroscience of the attack, right? What is going on in the old naughty poo? Well, what happens when someone hits you with a garbage take? What happens, right? Well, I call this the amygdala hijack, right? Your brain detects a threat, right? It detects a threat not only just to you, but to your worldview. I mean, everything that you sort of believe in, you feel like it is under threat. Cortisol spikes, the stress hormone, right? Your anterior cingulate cortex, it screams conflict. And then there's the IQ drop. There is literally an IQ drop. You literally lose working memory capacity. This is why you always think of the perfect comeback 20 minutes after the argument is over. I mean, you were chemically too stupid to think of it in the moment. And this is why I'm so good. Social media platforms like X, right? X, like, dude, come on with the X crap. It's not tough. TikTok. I mean, these are outrage engines, right? And it makes sense thinking about their owners. They monetize the dopamine cortisol loop, right? They reward you for dunking on people because the social validation, right? Likes and whatnot, they trigger the reward center. And it just reinforces the behavior of being a polarizing a-hole. Nice job, TikTok. Way to go, guys. Look, I'm going to go through the garbage argument autopsy. Right now, we're going to dismantle weak ass arguments for you so you can go ahead and do it yourself. Right? Let's get edgy here, right? Most people argue like freaking children. They use low resolution logic, right? And here's how you spot a garbage argument and how to attack it with stoic precision. So, number one, the appeal to emotion shield. How can you say that? Think of the children, the victims, the feelings, right? Do not apologize. Do not apologize. That is a submissive move, my dudes. Instead, call out the manipulation directly. Your emotional response is noted, but it is a distraction from the structural problem we're discussing. Can you address the data, or are we just sharing feelings here? There's also number two, and this one happens constantly, the ad hominem, right? This pivot is total garbage. You only say that because you're a blank, right? Insert political label here. You only say that because you're a Democrat. You only say that because you're a MAGA. Well, look, this is the ultimate sign of a lost debate, my guys. They've run out of ideas, so they're attacking the messenger. Happens all the time, right? My identity is irrelevant to the validity of the math. If a person you liked said this, the math would stay the same. Address the point, not the person. Number three, the false equivalence. Oh, so you like X? That's basically like supporting extreme evil thing, insert here. I mean, they might be right. But this is intellectual laziness, right? This is intellectual laziness. Look, I want you to use a question cascade. All right. And here's how you say it. Walk me through the logical steps that connect my support for a tax cut to the extreme scenario. I'll wait. Force them to do the cognitive heavy lifting, right? They're trying to avoid that. They want you to do it for them. Do not do it for them. Let them struggle under the weight of their own ridiculous argumentation. And then there's number four, moving the goalposts. Moving the goalposts. You prove them wrong, right? So they instantly change the criteria for winning. Yeah, we know some of these people, right? Guys, here's what you got to do. This is how you attack this argument. You stopped the argument immediately. Okay. We just finished the first point. You were wrong. Acknowledge that before we move on to your second point. Otherwise, this isn't a conversation. It's a monologue, and I'm out. Right there, you destroy all of their credibility. If they can't come back, right, to that first point and acknowledge that they were wrong, you just don't even worry about their second point because they're not arguing in good faith. They are not debating you. They just want to win. Whatever happened to trying to find out the truth? Now, number five, this one's ridiculous. It's called the word salad, right? It's the pseudo-intellectual. Using high-level academic jargon, right, to hide a lack of a point. Yeah, look, this is also the way you attack this is the Feynman technique, right? Say something like, explain that to me like I'm 5 years old. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it yourself. Nothing humbles a weak intellectual faster than being asked for clarity. Make them define their terms. It's an old philosophy trick, right? I remember one of my first philosophy classes in college. The professor basically said, if you ever want to stop philosophers from talking, ask them to define the vocabulary. Now, how do you become an elite persuader? If some of these arguments are good and some of them aren't so great, how do you actually get good, right? Well, I'm here to tell you. These are the steps to make you an elite persuader. Step 1, the 6-second reset. It lowers your cortisol, and if you're angry, you're controllable. Give yourself some time to reset. Step 2, the diagnosis. Are they arguing from a place of sacred value? If so, stop using logos. You're wasting your breath. Step 3, the question cascade. Instead of making a statement, ask, under what conditions would you change your mind? If the answer is none, the argument is over. The argument is over. Walk away. You don't need to argue with a brick wall. Step 4, you want to separate the person from the idea, right? And you say something like, look, I know you're a rational person, which is why this specific argument seems beneath your intelligence, really. What this does, it's an identity reframe, right? You're giving them a higher self to step into. You are actually making it easy for them to agree with you, right? By just gassing them up a little bit. That's a great way to attack their argument. It's a little ad hominem, but what it is. So in order to go ahead and implement these stages, we use something called the Claire method, right? C, number 1, right? You've got to calm the system. Breathe, right? Take a deep breath in, hold it for 4 seconds, then release for 4 to 6 seconds out of the mouth, right? Hold for another 4 and keep doing this, right? You're lowering the threat level. L, label the type. Is this pathos, moral, or garbage? A, ask for clarity. Ask for clarity. Force them to define their terms. It destroys the word salad, people. The R, reframe to shared values. Look, we both want the same outcome, safety, prosperity, whatever, right? We just disagree on the map. And then finally, E, evidence only after safety. Never show a chart to a person who thinks you hate them. It is not going to be seen. Look, you have got to make sure that you guys are playing from the same place, the same scope of operations here, right? Guys, as we head further into 2026, the political garbage argument has evolved completely. I mean, we are seeing a masterclass in deflection tactics as politicians scramble to handle scandals ranging from the recent AI generated disinformation campaigns to the ongoing investigations into federal surveillance overreach. Look, when a politician is caught in a scandal, they don't use logic. They do not ever use logic. Now, why is that? Because what they're doing isn't logical. They use cognitive redirection. All right. This is the 2026 political playbook on how to defend the indefensible, right? And how you people at Planting Thoughts can see right through it. My little succulents, you know you can. Number 1, the whataboutism smokescreen. All right. I hate this one. The whataboutism smokescreen. We are seeing this constantly regarding the recent investigations into congressional insider trading, for instance. When a representative, doesn't matter which party is from, if he's asked about their suspicious stock spikes and green energy just before new subsidies were announced, they don't answer the question. So what do? They say something like, why are you asking me about my portfolio when the other party literally ignored the border crisis for 3 years? I mean, that may be true, right? It might be true, but that's not the point. We're talking about their stock portfolio, not the border. Look, this is a lateral shift, right? They are trying what's called a lateral shift on you. They are trying to trigger your tribal outrage toward the other side so you forget that they just stole 6 figures from the taxpayer. So how do you attack this? What do you do when they pull this nasty little booger out of the back pocket? You pin them back to their original point, period. You pin them back to the original point. The border is a separate debate, my dear. We are currently discussing your specific breach of the Stock Act. Do you believe you're above the law? Or do you have a legitimate explanation for those trades? It's pretty good. Number two, right? Here's another one of the garbage arguments, the weaponized victimhood reframe. The weaponized victimhood reframe. The current context is like, think about the Department of Justice right now, right? And all the rhetoric surrounding probes really into political figures, right? Some of them you might agree with, some of them you might not. It depends on what party you're probably a part of, right? But if you hear someone saying something like, this isn't an investigation, it's a witch hunt and a weaponization of the state, it's the deep state against me and my supporters, they are moving from logic, logos, the facts of the crime, to moral framing. It's an attack on the sacred value of fairness. Boo-hoo! What? Look, by making themselves the victim, they make their supporters feel like they are the ones under attack. So what do? You strip away the narrative. You strip away that pathetic ass narrative. Look, the term witch hunt is a rhetorical label. You say something like, can you address the specific evidence presented in the indictment? If the evidence is falsified, show us the proof. If not, the label doesn't change the facts. There's also the semantic fog, right? The non-denial denial. Okay, the semantic fog. I mean, look, this one right here is the favorite tool for scandals involving tech regulation and data privacy, right? I mean, here's their garbage argument. We did not sell user data. We leveraged third-party informational partnerships to enhance the user experience. Yeah, we know what this means. It means you sold the data, you jerk-offs. Look, they use high-resolution academic word salads to basically hide low-resolution ethics. If you can't understand the sentence, you can't be mad at it. That's what they're hoping for. So how do you attack this, right? You force the Feynman technique, right? Look, you say something like, you're using a lot of syllables to describe a simple transaction. Did money or services change hands in exchange for private citizen data? Yes or no. That's it. Don't get caught up in their mushy mouth, word salad garbage. You've got number 4, the straw man, the moral panic, right? We see this. We see this in the debates over energy policy, right? We see it in the 2026 global climate accords. You might hear something like, my opponent wants to ban your cars and force you to eat bugs. They hate the American worker. What, jerk off? That is not what anybody said. We want to save the flippin' planet, my dudes. Come on, you know that. Stop it with your BS psychological tricks. You're creating a straw man, right? The bug-eating extremist. This is so pathetic, and it's so sad that people fall for this crap all the time. Look, why are they creating, right, the straw man? Because it's easier to defeat a monster than it is to debate the actual economic nuances of a carbon tax. So here's what you do. You reclaim the steel man. You reclaim the steel man. No one in this room has proposed eating bugs. We are talking about the 4% increase in energy costs for industrial manufacturing. This has nothing to do with his truck or his hamburger. Can we stay in reality, or do you need to keep fighting imaginary monsters? The goal of the politician is to make the argument so toxic, so loud that you eventually just turn off the TV, right? You are so worn out. They want apathy. They want apathy. They want you to just sit back and say, we can't do anything anyway. If you're with me, if you're with planting thoughts, your job as a succulent, as a sovereign mind, is to stay calm, label the garbage, and demand the data. Don't let them hijack your amygdala to hide their corruption. The goal isn't to win arguments. It's to influence minds without inflaming brains. If you spend your life winning debates but leaving people feeling small and hated, you are a failure as a communicator. Be dangerous with your logic, but stoic with your delivery. If you want part 2 of this series, The Neurology of Propaganda, leave a like and put "We want to hear about propaganda" in the comments. I'm going to show you how the media uses all 7 of these types of arguments to keep you in a constant state of tribal hysteria. Subscribe to Planting Thoughts, guys. This is the one place you will get the actual truth on the internet, because I believe in science and logic. I'm Mike. Plant wisely, nerds.